Welcome to the Limitless Energy Podcast, and my guest today is influencer extraordinaire, RVer, star of the RVers, Morton's on the move, Mr. Tom Morton.
Well, that's quite the introduction.
Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm so happy you're here because I kind of know you.
A little bit.
A little bit. I mean, we met back in 2018, so about 5 years now, at an event in Wellington, Texas.
Yeah, middle of nowhere.
You remember that?
Just a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, we were out there shooting a movie about the RV lifestyle, and we had brought Battleborn on as a sponsor, and it was exciting to get to see you guys there. We personally had been really starting to think about lithium. Lithium was really just kind of starting at that time.
Infancy.
Yeah, it was really very few people were starting to think about it. But batteries have just always been such the crux of a big problem in RVs for extended time off grid and everything. And RVing was really taking off at that time. So it was exciting to see you guys because. Shortly before that, I had installed a Tesla battery in my RV to start playing with that whole lithium thing, and we'd reached out to you guys actually to just sort of learn a little bit about your batteries.
Yes,
and
you
stuff
did.
Like that.
Yeah. I'm gonna apologize now in public because I guess, blew you off is what we did. I don't know what happened exactly, but we didn't get back to you.
It was a long time ago, but yeah.
Because of that, instead of Battleborns, you actually put in a Tesla.
Yeah,
module.
yeah. I was so I had really known about just the immense benefits of lithium, and I was like, I want to do this in my RV, and there weren't really a whole lot of manufacturers like you out there really producing these batteries yet, and I didn't know a whole lot about even your technology or something, so I just kind of want to learn a little bit more about it and stuff. But I have an electrical engineering background, so I wanted to build my own battery, if you will.
Right. To be clear, this wasn't a Powerwall. This was an actual module from a Model S.
I physically went to a recycler, if you will, a guy who heavily modifies Teslas as well, and he had some wrecked Teslas, and I actually saw a wrecked Tesla Model S that we removed one of the 16 packs, I think, at the time in that year. We removed one of these modules, and I took it with me and modified it to work.
So you kind of have to know what you're doing.
You very much have
not
to
just
know what
not
you're
just electricity, but a little bit of chemistry and
Yes.
safety and control.
Yes.
So what is your background exactly then? Why did you decide to do this?
So I have an electrical engineering degree with a concentration in power. So I primarily worked in industry, high-powered applications in industry. I also did some transmission. I worked with relaying and substation design. So I have just a little bit of experience in electrical design. And I actually worked with batteries as well. I worked with very large lead-acid battery banks in substations and industry that we use for backup power. We used a lot of batteries together, usually 110 to 120 volt DC battery banks. Very, very large, very, very dangerous. And
You mean voltage-wise dangerous?
no, primarily acid-wise.
Okay, a lot of acid, a lot of lead.
If we actually went in, so we had to cage off the batteries, and just to keep a certain distance away in case anything went wrong or something. But if we ever went in that cage or had to do watering or anything like that, we had to wear full acid suits, full goggles. And yeah, so you are...
In case of catastrophic failure.
Catastrophic, definitely.
I mean, it's not like normal environment just because you have lead acid batteries there. You're exposed to anything necessarily.
Correct. Yeah. It's just... we're talking very, very large banks. There's no protection on a lead-acid battery either, right? So if you shorted something out or whatnot, I mean, you could have a massive explosion. They're dangerous.
Yeah, no, you're right. It always cracked me up that people would be like, well, lithium is so scary and dangerous, when in fact, lead acid doesn't have any protections at all. Typically, lithium has at least a management system.
Correct. If you were to drop a bar across the bus bars of these battery banks, it would be catastrophic.
But your Tesla module, you made your own management system, or did it have one?
It did not. Well, it kind of did. So the cars have sort of individual management systems on each individual battery, but they actually have kind of a head unit that like manages the whole pack or all the packs together. And without, I guess, the proprietary technology, whatever they've programmed it, which I didn't have, I wasn't able to actually tap into any of that. So
Right.
I went ahead and I built my own monitoring and relaying system that would take it offline based on
Voltage.
current, and temperature, because you don't current's not really too big an issue with those packs because they can put out an enormous amount of
And they're actually
power.
fused. Each one of those cells is fused.
They
so
are.
You had that at least.
They are. If you were to short one of those packs out, almost all those fuses would pop like instantly, and most likely nothing would happen.
But the bigger danger is high voltage.
The biggest danger is definitely high voltage, is overcharging
Right.
one of these packs, and it's very critical. So I basically had like 2 layers of backups that were watching the voltage and would take it offline if something went wrong. The chemistry that they use in the cars is far more volatile than the lithium iron phosphate. So I was kind of playing with fire, I guess.
But you knew it. You knew how to do it.
I did know it, yes. And I mean, we slept on top of the battery, so it was.
Well, in terms of influencers in the RV space, you were pretty unique in your background. Maybe you and like Technomadia, and I had heard of Technomadia, another RVer star, by the way. I guess you've traveled with them?
We haven't traveled. We do know them, though. We know them pretty well. Yeah, they're more connectivity, electronics, stuff like that. They were really big into connectivity, although they actually were one of the first.
They were the earliest adopters
to actually
I think,
install a customized lithium
bunch of
pack in their RV.
big prismatic cells.
Yeah, correct.
But you and them were I would say uniquely suited for this sort of exploratory work in RV electricity, right?
Willing to take the risk and design it ourselves, if you will. And since after that time, I did sort of publish a lot of my information about doing this in an RV, and a lot of people followed suit. There probably were a handful of accidents around that. I actually know there were a few.
I know of a couple myself.
Yeah, because if you got something wrong with the design,
right,
because you're not having an electrical engineer overview a lot of what you actually did. Yeah, I showed you how to do it, but if you did it wrong, this could be catastrophic.
Right.
And there were definitely a handful of fires out there in those early days.
So you were excited to apply LFP, apply a system with a well understood BMS. So it is okay. Let me go back to Wellington. We're in Wellington, Texas. You guys actually have a Tesla module in your RV, and then we met. You were involved in the movie.
I was directing it.
You were directing the movie.
Yes.
We had. I remember when it was Sean who brought it to my attention that there's this movie and we were going to sponsor it, and I was just like, a movie about RVing, and I was just like, all right, let's do it. Next thing we know, we're in Wellington, the middle of nowhere, with all these RVers, which turned out to be kind of like a very early gathering of folks that ended up being fairly well-known RV influencers. You being one of them.
Yeah, we had quite a few people that were either directly involved with the movie or had come to what we put together for the release of the movie. We called Nomad Fest, and I don't remember quite the numbers, but we had a lot of people show up, and it was a lot of fun. It was a really good event. It was both influencers and just people who were excited about the RV community, and a lot of it kind of was around. I guess the story behind it was really around the freedom that you can attain with RVing, and a big part of that was batteries and being able to get off grid.
Yeah, it was. We felt a big part of it. I was surprised, and I remember, Sean and I were both interviewed in the movie, and I was asked all about boondocking, and I actually didn't know what boondocking was at the time. Of course, I've come to learn a lot about it in the last 5 years, but I was more interested in the fact that the RVers were presenting this ability, they were executing in terms of living off of solar. You know, they were actually doing it, and I felt like this was really spearheading the whole living off of solar thing that could happen off grid. That's what I wanted to focus on. It really focused more on, well, what's your idea of boondocking? But it's living off grid and how the batteries contribute to that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's interesting. The RV is just such a good off-grid package, right? You manage all of your resources, waste, water, and power. So I think the RV really kind of is and was a good catalyst for that exact thing, and it does just spill right over into off-grid homes, off-grid anything really. But you're right, it was I think everyone in the movie either had or wanted to install solar at that point because it was just so exciting. You were able to see your neighbor and you're like, wait, you can not run your generator for a couple days? Like that's incredible.
Right, and be like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and it really does just change the game. And going from a smaller lead acid battery bank or even a large lead acid battery bank to lithium in an RV, it just absolutely changes the usability of the RV. I mean, like right now we're parked out in the parking lot. We spent a very cold, freezing night in the parking lot, but I didn't have to worry about it at all. We had, all the power that we needed, ran the microwave in the morning to warm up some tea, and it just functions. It functions great. You are your own utility, though, so you still have to manage, that energy flow and stuff like that. But it's almost fun in a way, especially in an RV.
But because you guys demonstrated, it's funny how this is 2018. You're the early adopters. Now we're in 2023, and Keystone only puts out towables with lithium on them. I mean, it's standard in a lot.
It should be.
I agree. Of course, we've been driving that home for a while, but it's incredible how the movement, I think, started with folks like you that put it out online and said, this is how you do it, especially folks like you, Tom, that say this is why it works, these are the pitfalls, this is how you hook it all up. And then average RVers could do it themselves. All of a sudden, they're living off grid, they're boondocking. And then it started to turn over to the OEMs, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's exactly how it went. It was the Tesla batteries. People were also using Volt batteries, Chevy Volt batteries, pretty like car, because acquiring lithium cells, you could procure a Chinese cell yourself or something like that. But a lot of times, actually procuring cells out of a used car pack was easier for a lot of time, a lot of people. That's kind of, I think, where it started. And then Battleborn came along and offered a drop-in solution that you didn't have to know all that stuff. And that really started to, it was the individuals. It wasn't the OEMs. The OEMs weren't even really taking notice yet at that time either. They were looking at it like it was just a side crazy thing, And then they really did start seeing how much it improved the lifestyle. And I think it's a battery that you could think of as something that's a lifelong product in an RV instead of a disposable product, which the batteries they were putting in really were.
Right.
It just absolutely changes how you can use an RV. This was
an investment now in your in your energy. You can actually keep the batteries often for longer than your RV.
Definitely.
So how did the RVers come along? So now there's a television show. I said you were the star of the RVers. There was Technomatia. There was the RV Geeks. How did that come about?
So the RVers is a TV show produced by a man named Anthony Nally, who is actually a Canadian. And at the time, he was just starting that. He was starting that show while we were doing the movie, and we had kind of heard about it through the grapevine, like oh, this RV movement's and we had kind of thought oh, he's copying us or something like that. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't. He was doing completely his own thing, and through the movie, through just lots of connections that we knew, we kind of got involved with that show almost immediately after the movie.
Okay.
And the RVers TV show originally was produced for almost PBS exclusively. It was going to be kind of an educational show, but then it got picked up by Discovery Channel and a handful of other larger channels as well.
And the new season is just coming out now, huh?
It is. I couldn't tell you exactly when. I forget. Do you remember? Huh? No, we.
Season 4 rerun started on the 1st, and then it rolls right into season 5.
Okay, so five seasons have been
5
filmed.
seasons. Yeah.
And now you're going out of the country.
Yeah. So we did. What do you mean bug out of the country? I guess.
Didn't you do a season in New Zealand?
So
or
we
was
did.
that-
We shot one kind of a whole episode in New Zealand. We rented RVs in New Zealand. We traveled both islands. However, that was during the pandemic, so that was kind of an interesting experience for us. But then last fall, we actually toured Europe in RVs. We rented RVs in Europe, and we shot a lot for the show. So there's another.
All right, well, there you go. That's what I
segment.
meant by out of the country.
Yeah,
right?
and then and we just got back from a trip down the Baja Peninsula in Mexico.
Okay.
We shot for the show as well.
All right, and that's season 5.
That'll be season 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. That must be a lot of fun, actually. That's I mean, you're used to filming yourselves and putting your own stories out. Now you're the talent.
Yeah, it is fun. It's sort of similar in a lot of ways. We are still the crew. So
Okay.
we're
All right.
we're crew, although we're not editing and producing. That's like, so we do have a larger team doing that.
Is it still? Do you consider it still educational in terms of what you're doing?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. We're reaching a slightly different audience than what we would reach, ourselves. These are TV viewers. A lot of them are still very excited and love RVing as a whole. We do a lot of educational content through it. That's part of what we love to do is teach and tell people what they can do. Like here's your RV. Did you know you could do this with it?
Where does it go from here? Where do you see the future? Are you going to get stationary? Or are you going to get a house and do something similar?
I guess the future is still it's unwritten, but I think for us, I would love to do some more. I would love to take what we've done with the RV and do some stationary applications. So we primarily travel between properties in Michigan and Florida. And in Florida, we have full hookups, and I still actually prioritize solar. So I do use a lot of the energy while we're down there. But in Michigan, we're completely off grid. And we've primarily been using the RV as the sole source of energy. But when we extend our stay into like the fall and stuff like that, we are still limited with our solar energy capacity and stuff like that. So I would love to do like an off-grid energy bank that we could plug more people into and do more stuff with, really build kind of an off-grid, a whole off-grid property. But we are dreaming of purchasing a home in the future as well. And I would love to take that same concept, because it's so much easier than it's ever been to actually take a property off grid and manage your own utilities.
How has your experience with the mobile solution, do you think, how is that going to help you with a larger stationary solution? Well,
it's all similar. It's all really kind of the same thing.
Same stuff.
It's the same stuff. It's just bigger. Yeah, that's basically it. So I think, with a stationary application, I'm not as concerned about weight. Weight's a huge thing with RVs. So how much solar can I put on the roof? Am I trying to go as lightweight as possible with the panels and stuff like that? With a residential application, I would just, big old residential panels and a big old grid, weld it together. But actually sort of like managing it, doing the calculations to figure out how much I need, how much I plan to use, what the seasonality is going to be. That's a big difference as well. What's the lowest peak in the winter that I'm going to want to be able to produce, that kind of thing. So that's sort of part of it. And then if you're going to do grid tie at all, I think, like, am I going to use any energy from another source? If I purchase a home that already has a grid connection, I'm probably going to tie that in somehow. So that actually, even grid tie does exist to some extent with RVs, because we're actually bringing power in, shore power or generator. We toned down how much power we actually draw from, like, if you can use a small generator and hybrid inverters, so that you can actually charge at a much lower rate and not overpower a generator, run more appliances, run an air conditioner with some solar, some generator. You can mix these power sources and things like that. You can do the same thing with residential applications with a grid tie.
Well, whatever you do, I'm sure you're going to keep educating, and you've garnered a pretty good reputation now. I mean, people do listen to you.
We'd love to keep educating and continue to share what we're doing, because it's we are always trying to kind of push the limits. Like, what is the new thing? What can we do now? And that's just part of something that we enjoy to do, and we really do love to share that. So.
So going way back, you started traveling in your RV. You started publicizing what you're doing, putting it out online, and started making a living at it, right? I mean, you've gotten pretty good at actually, getting. It's a trick to get people to watch what you're doing. You've gotten good at that, and you're starting to learn more about that and expand from there, right?
Yeah, I suppose we went from vlogging, if you will, like the earliest days of it for us. It wasn't to make a living. It was to we hit the road with the intent to sort of find something new.
And I think that's a common story, right?
Yeah.
People who did this, they didn't do it to make a living.
Exactly.
A lot of folks managed to do it along the way.
Yes.
And you're one of them.
Yeah, and it's so we've transitioned from vlogging to, I guess, vlogging, but on a larger scale that was able to bring in some income to blogging, and now actually like a lot of marketing and even assisting others with marketing needs and stuff like that, because we've learned how to garner eyeballs, if you will. So that's been something that one of the ways that we have been able to make a living on the road. We did many other things as well, though. And a lot of people are able to work from the road these days. The connectivity has just gotten so much better that, like, with particularly with Starlink now, we're able to have high-speed internet from satellites, and you're able to work from anywhere. But as a whole, I think a lot of the some of those early influencers have taken a similar path and sort of become, I guess it is almost marketing in a way.
Well, I guess that's the new marketing. And marketing isn't what it used to be, and the internet changed that. And when you become a personality on the internet, you've got kind of an inside track.
I think that's exactly it. It's an audience, right? Marketing is always an audience, whether it's paid advertising or a following that you have. You're trying to get those eyeballs.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's great. You kind of went full circle. You started as a tech guy, an engineer. You went on the road. You started educating. You became a little more well-known, and I think you're going to be educating some more and doing some more tech as you move forward. I think you're going to go stationary pretty soon. That's my guess.
So we've been on the road for, almost 9 years now. And I do think that we're starting to feel like, maybe we should put down some roots. And from the tech side, being able to actually build out a stationary power system is something that I definitely want to do. Mm-hmm. And like I talked about earlier, it really is being your own utility in a way, and it's kind of fun. It's a fun thing to do. But I guess opposed to being a utility, particularly with solar, there's so little you have to do. Most of the time, if you set it up right, it just works. It does its thing. So you just have to occasionally monitor it, make sure everything's working properly. You do watch those batteries. What is my state of charge, particularly in an RV. I guess with lithium, if you run it too low, you just fire up a generator a lot of times or something like that, and it's not that big a deal.
There's some tricks of the trade to optimize everything, but it's really not rocket science.
No, it isn't, and particularly with like an off-grid type home, especially if there's a grid tie. It can do its own thing and provide almost all of your energy needs, and then back up itself if it needs to, either a generator or the grid when it gets low.
Well, that's where we're headed at Dragonfly, as you know, and you and Kate have been a big part of our story. So I want to thank you for that. You've been supportive. I think we've supported each other.
We have.
Through the years.
It's been an awesome ride for sure, and it's been great to see really where you guys have gone and what you've done for the industry and RVing particularly. It's changed the game. It's taken it from those early days of playing with flammable Tesla batteries to something everyone can do, and it improves everyone's life. So
yeah. Thanks for saying that. It's been a crazy ride for us.
It's been a lot of fun.
So on that note, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Tom, and hope to see you again soon.
Hey, it was great to be here.
Be sure to subscribe to the Limitless Energy Podcast on any of your favorite podcast platforms.